there's no doubt that this whole conversation was spurred by Lincoln Riley basically saying that, or questioning if the rivalry should continue because of the decision to move to the Big Ten and how that's impacted Southern Cal traveling across the country. And no one's going to dispute the argument that it's probably taking a toll on their athletes. It's probably taking a toll on their program. They flew, I think, 17,000 miles last year, their first year in the Big Ten. If you compare that to 2023 or 2022, the Pac-12 flew more than any conference in its existence because you can't bus as much to many of the places, how spread out it is. But they flew somewhere in the ballpark of 10,000, 11,000 miles. So you're almost adding on to a third of what they were originally flying now onto their schedule. Now, Notre Dame's not to blame for that. Southern Cal signed up to go to the Big Ten. Kind of like we talked about the college football playoff after 1 year trying to figure some things out. I think they're trying to figure some things out and how to make it work for Southern Cal because it is a non-conference game for them. For Notre Dame, their perspective, they view it differently because it's been such a historical rivalry and Notre Dame's historically been independent. That's been one of the games that they look forward to every year. And we kind of looked at it like, well, this is part of our schedule, part of our conference, if you will, even though there's the soft affiliation with the ACC. So the hard part is the difference in that perspective, where Southern Cal joined a conference and they are now playing a schedule that, causes them to have to go back and forth to the East Coast more than they ever have before. And I think it's taking its toll and maybe taking away from some of their competitiveness. And if you look at, Notre Dame, they're like, well, nothing's really changed for them. I mean, yes, there's some different opponents. They've got the deal with Clemson, the 12-year deal that's coming up, and they'll schedule Ohio State and Texas and other big boys. But, for the most part, the schedules remain somewhat the same. You've got your traditional games against Stanford and Navy, and, you always try to have Michigan State, some other schools that are within the schedule that have kind of always been there, and Purdue and Michigan back when we played. Michigan, not so much anymore. But that's, I think, one of the bigger differences is there's been so much change to Southern Cal that they're now looking at how they can make it work within their schedule. And I think for Notre Dame, there's going to be a change if it does continue to take place, probably as far as when it takes place during the year. Because you also have to look at, for, again, Notre Dame, there's not like conference play. They play, 5 ACC teams. They're kind of sprinkled in throughout. Southern Cal gets into their conference schedule after the first few weeks of non-conference games. Well, that's a non-conference opponent. It always has been, and they kind of had their special slot for it. But it's become that much more difficult logistically and probably with the schedule they play now in the Big Ten as compared to what they had previously in the Pac-12. So, look, I like to be reasonable. I think you can look at it from both sides. But this was all spurred by Lincoln Riley. And the weird thing is ADs ultimately are the decision makers to make the schedules. The head coaches have influence on it, and he's clearly speaking out to what he believes has been difficult for Southern Cal. So, they've got a year left. They play this year in South Bend. Maybe there'll be an extension for another year to 2026 where Notre Dame goes out to Southern Cal and they can figure it out. But it would be a shame to see it go away. I mean, it really would take away from what is one of the greatest rivalries in college football history.
And not into the season opener idea either. That's also the one that was kicked around.
Yeah, and that's one of the ideas for it. I think it fits what Southern Cal wants to do. For Notre Dame, could it work? Potentially. It takes away from what has been traditionally their, West Coast trip at the end of the season and Thanksgiving. And again, we kind of mentioned the automatic qualifiers, which that could maybe change USC's perspective. If they implement automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten, the SEC, ACC and Big 12 into the playoff, then maybe that changes. Maybe they're okay with playing Notre Dame when they play them. Because it kind of was, back in the day when both programs are thriving or one's, thriving and the other is competitive and it's a rivalry. That's what it was. It was almost like a game to decide whether or not you were going to get a shot at a BCS, a shot at a national championship. I mean, that's really what that game kind of was. So having it at the end of the season, if it was out in California, or having it at like a midpoint of the season where it's at the teeth of the schedule, those were pivotal games And you look at it now and just say, if you put it at the beginning of the season, does it take away from what the rivalry and the history of this rivalry has been?
USC is in a transitional time, and they've been hit with the transfer portal. Just doesn't seem like they're confident in playing against a Notre Dame. And if they can get out of the way of getting steamrolled by a team that seems to be a program that seems to be going in the opposite direction. I was talking to Coach Jaywan the other day. We had a great conversation, and I rarely hear people speak so highly of other people, and just the glowing remarks of what he had to say about Marcus Freeman. I'm a fan of Notre Dame football because I'm a football purist. I went to a blue blood school, and I feel like Notre Dame is a relatable school to Penn State in a lot of ways. So I'm a big Notre Dame fan. But I'm also now a Marcus Freeman fan after hearing the way he handles things, he treats things, and you can see it. You can see these players are wanting to go to Notre Dame. You can see there are coaches going to Notre Dame. It's a team and an organization, a program that's trending in the right direction. And I don't see that for USC. I mean, you're talking about what they had upwards, I believe, of like 20 plus, like 27 players that entered their portal. And I don't know how good those players are, but I just know there's a lot of uncertainty.
I've got a theory too on that and what you're saying. I think one of the reasons why there probably won't be a decision made now is because, let's say USC struggles this year.
Oh boy.
I'm just saying, if there's the potential,
and there's a strong possibility they will.
And if they do, and if, again, the contract's a tough thing to buy out, but if they do, and maybe the pressure continues to mount, and maybe Lincoln's not the guy at Southern Cal, then you don't have to worry about signing up for this rivalry with a coach who's begrudgingly walking into it or doesn't want it. You can, have a coach that signs up saying, I know exactly what I signed up for. I know that when USC's best, they're a team that's going to be competitive, or they're going to be a team that can beat Notre Dame, because ultimately that's going to be one of the teams that's going to be playing for a national championship too. And that's the perspective you have to have. You can't. You're eventually going to have to pay the piper. You're eventually going to have to play the top teams, whether it's in this playoff system or even throughout the course of a season. Yeah. And that's the reality for where college football is at. Like, you can't shy away from those big matchups. And it felt like when Lincoln Riley first brought up a year ago, that's exactly what he was doing.
You got to win the recruiting war, especially in your own home. And it used to be they dominated recruiting in Southern California, and that was good enough. You fight against UCLA, it's like, hey, it's okay, little brother. You over there, you guys just get your good grades, be happy with what you got. We'll play sports. We'll win football over here. Y'all do basketball. There's less people y'all got to pay for. Go ahead and do you. But now you got to compete against everyone. Everyone, if you are a 4-star, if you are a 5-star guy, 3-star guy, they're coming for you from all over the country. And Oregon has been recruiting like gangbusters in Southern California. Like gangbusters. Alabama coming. OSU has been coming to California. Penn State has been coming to California. Notre Dame stays coming to California and getting some dope linebackers and defensive players. So I'm just saying, they have a lot working against them because they just aren't as whoever they get. If they do move on from Lincoln Riley, or if Lincoln Riley wants to stay, he's got to figure out how to become more attractive to the recruiting classes and the transfer portal guys that are out there, if they want to have a chance of surviving where they're at currently in the NCAA.